JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is known for a lot of things, for those who do know of it, and something that may come up in conversation is the horror subgenre of the series. Regardless of the humor and hilarity of this so-called bizarre series, Hirohiko Araki is exceptionally good at integrating unnerving themes into it. Welcome back, people of Earth and elsewhere, to the show where the content is spam and I am Crackers. Today I'll get my list of the top 10 scariest stands in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. First off, the rules for how I made this list. Stands come from all parts of the series, even those not adapted to the anime as of yet, so some spoilers may be present. However, things like spin-offs and light novels do not count. Second, I try to keep this list as generally scary as possible. I don't think I have anything that could affect the list in such a way, but if someone is aquaphobic, something like Geb, Aqua Necklace, and Clash would all be on this list. I also tried to go with things that aren't just creepy or gross or, as a rule, bizarre. The concept of how these stands may be considered scary can vary from things to how they look, what they do, how they're used, or even who their users are. Lastly, this list counts up from 1 to 10 because ranking some of these less scary stands on the list was just a little bit hard. So, without any particular order, let's start. Number 1. Any Requiem stand. Wow, very professional way to start, I know, but it's at the bottom of the list because it's just that vague, I swear. It's the only blanket entry on this list, and I'm not going to explain a lot about Requiem stands because they each have their own reasons for being scary. Though I guess for the main reason is because they have more willpower than most other stands and they really can't be controlled. That and they're just so freaky powerful. Okay, if I had to choose one, I'd say Silver Chariot Requiem. On to the next one. The Hangman, number 2. My view of this one may be a little bit skewed, I'll admit. The Hangman was much scarier, I would think, in the OVA when everything was less colorful. I mean, the premise of it was kind of scary, how it moves from reflection to reflection and can't be damaged in the reflection no matter how much you break or avoid said reflective surface. It was interesting, and let's all face facts, it's like every other stand in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure where said people fighting said stand had to be incredibly creative in order to defeat it. Then, just as an added creepy plus, 2 right arms. Eee. Number 3, Death 13. How could the Freddy Krueger of stands not be on this list? Definitely one of the most horror-based stands from the series, Death 13 is also aptly named for a scary stand list. Seriously though, it's Freddy Krueger. It attacks people when they sleep in the realm of their dreams, where it has pretty much absolute control over everything. We all know it was beat by a fluke. Yes, Kakyoin, you are a fluke now. And how it looks really doesn't make me feel any better about it either. I mean, it's the Grim Reaper clown-looking thing, and don't even get me started on Manish Boy. It's a baby with fangs. That's just plain the thing of nightmares, Wait. Number 4, Cream. Cute name, Araki. Although this thing is not the first thing I would think of on this list if you were to say the word cute. It's not the last either, by the way. I mean, Vanilla Ice is a weirdo, I'll say that first. But then there's his stand. It is a juggernaut. There's no other word for it. In the form of an invisible sphere. The only indication of where it is are the holes in reality around it where it strikes. For whatever comes into contact with it disappears entirely. But whatever is left outside its diameter is untouched, save for the potential puddle of blood. If anyone was to encounter such a stand, I pity them. But there is a small consolation. You can't see it, and apparently it also can't see you, so Cream is bound to simply guess where its target is. Unlike this next entry. At this point, I'd like to pay homage to the other Part 3 stands that didn't make this list. Ebony Devil, as presented in its fight, it was a scary scene altogether, but let's face it, the scariest part was the doll. And the doll itself is not the stand. So I'm taking points off because it's just a stand that was possessing the doll, and that's not how it is all the time, I would think. Geb, for its beautifully terrifying portrayal in the series, especially the OVA, but aquakinesis can only get you so far. And finally, Set, the Shadowman stand with the freaky eyeballs and an axe. An axe! It doesn't help that Alessia is just a grade A creeper too. Back to the list, number 5, Killer Queen. It wasn't until I put this right next to Cream that I realized the two do essentially the same thing. Make things go bye-bye. But I had to put Killer Queen as just a little bit scarier because unlike Cream, it's coordinated. But it's a big pink kitty. No, no, no. Okay, I'll give you that it doesn't exactly look like the most terrifying thing. It could actually be considered cute at some points, but it's a bomb maker, people. Unlike the last stand, the user, Kira, is not an idiot. He was a successful serial killer before he got his stand, and having Killer Cat Person stand just makes his hobby that much easier. Adding to the fact that it has a heat-seeking auto hand for long-distance missions and bites the dust, which I won't go into detail on, which is scary just by itself. I'd have to be crazy not to say that, despite its apparently fuzzy look, Killer Queen is downright terrifying, and the only Part 4 stand on this list. Other somewhat scary Part 4 stands include Enigma, whose premise for trapping humans is to discover how they act when they're afraid, so I'll at least mention that. Also, Highway Star, because the only thing scarier than a freaky monster jumping out at you is a freaky monster that jumps out at you and then chases you. Probably faster than you can get away, and even if you can, it can track your scent better than any living creature on Earth. Number 6, Marilyn Manson. That name, though. For the singular Part 6 stand on this list, how about some dismemberment? Again, not scary just to look at, but think twice about playing games with it. The premise of this stand's entire ability is debt collector. And if that didn't scare you, just wait until you don't have the hard cash to pay up. There are other ways to make you compensate, and Marilyn Manson knows every single one. As long as it's on you. I mean, jewelry, gold teeth, this stand can take whatever of value you have with just its hands. And if your internal organs can be sold on the black market, it won't hesitate to reach into your torso and take your spleen, among other things. At least if you beat it, you can get it back, I think. I have to reread Part 6. Shout out to Jailhouse Lock, not because I find it particularly scary, but more so because I just hate it more than any other stand in Part 6. But that is a story for another time. On to number 7 and Part 7, Civil War. Civil War is a graveyard of guilt, lost things, crushed memories, and personal problems. That's probably why it's on this list, too. Things you've left behind or felt guilty about all materialize and kind of meld into your body in a really grotesque way until you're covered in this gook and it shrinks on you and crushes you, all while you're forced to remember all the pain that went with these things. I mean, if claustrophobia doesn't kill you first, this thing is pretty much the Lock on steroids. The good news? The stuff you're being crushed with is water-soluble. But who has water at a time like this, really? When you also realize the fact that it can't be touched and that it can bring its user back from the dead conditionally, Civil War is a horrible force to be reckoned with. A psychological attack as well as a physical one that is horrifying to look at. Yeah, I don't regret putting it on here. Number 8, Notorious B.I.G. A minute ago, I mentioned something about scary stands just get scarier when they chase after you, right? Well, that's the basis for Notorious B.I.G. altogether. Let's back up a minute and just mention that this stand is activated by the death of its user. It was activated by the singular death of its user, anyway. Though one could question how you discover the nature of a stand like that. Oh yeah, Part 5, it just works. The real issue is that you can't stop it at all, because it's clearly not dependent on its user to do its thing. Being an automatic stand, it's not like it has the brightest disposition, it simply chases after whatever in the immediate vicinity happens to be moving the fastest. But it does make sure to move slightly faster than that. Should you have the misfortune of being caught by this stand, it latches on and eats away at you so it can grow. So it's like yellow temperance on drugs. It does have other rather terrifying properties, but the scariest part is probably that it just doesn't die. Even Giorno, God-modding Giovanna, and the rest of Part 5, all of those people couldn't do anything about it. They chucked it into the ocean, where it's still causing trouble. Gosh dang it, Araki, Part 5 was just an excuse for you to write nightmare fuel, wasn't it? Other Part 5 stands I'd like to point out here are Purple Haze, which is almost unstoppable, but it didn't really make me cringe as I was reading it like some of these other ones did, and The Grateful Dead, because 2 creepy eyes wasn't bad enough, apparently, and it did make me cringe for all it's worth, but it was too easy to fight against. And finally, Babyface. Not on the list, because it was grade A creepy, but not the kind of horror I was looking for. Let's not go into that one. Number 9, Vitamin C. This newbie is a real doozy. Part 8 has had its moments, but things have been tense since this stand and its user have shown up. It is literally, at this point, the newest stand that has been introduced, so that's why a lot of you might not have heard of it yet. Now, You ever played The Floor is Lava? Well, yeah, just pretend that the floor is lava. Now, imagine everything else is also lava. Did part 4 ever have you looking at hands in a funny way? Damo Tamaki, if that is his real name, has this stand that liquefies whoever touches it, or who he touches, or its unbearably creepy grasping handprints touch. This is another one that also has a lot to do with presentation, and I have to thank Araki for how entirely scary the scenes involving this stand have been, especially the introduction, where we just didn't know what the fluff was going on and where everyone was disappearing to. Everyone was melting! At different rates for some reason, but still melting! At this point, we can only assume, as it is with the effects of many other stands, that once the user is defeated, everyone will go back to normal. But the suspense is killing me, and that's probably why this one also made it onto the list. I can't wait to see how this whole thing plays out, but I swear, this is proof that things don't have to necessarily be gory in order to make something altogether ghastly. Another party stand worth mentioning that I just had to bring up is Dubiwa. Another chasing-based stand that is linked to the target's breathing. Scary? Yes. Enough to make it on this list? Maybe for someone else, but not me. And lastly, number 10. I had to end off this list with the one stand I think of first when I think of scary stands, which would be Part 5's Metallica. Rosato Nero's stand, again, Nightmare Fuel, is the epitome of terror when I try to think of things that I seriously don't want to come in contact with. Not much to look at, maybe, but it has the ever-so-fun ability to control metal. Okay, so more specifically, iron. Unique, I know, but reading the Metallica fight in the manga had me looking away almost every other page. This guy uses his stand to manipulate the iron in the human body, in blood, and he draws it out of his target in the form of multiple sharp objects, like needles popping out of your face and spitting up razor blades. Those are just a couple of ways. We also saw some guy have a pair of scissors formed in his neck. Points for creativity. This one is even bloodier than any of the other stands on this list, I think. As an added bonus, this thing can also make its user invisible. I know Cream did something kinda like that, but Nero can still see you, even though you can't see him in this case. Any logic concerning the human physiology aside, had this list been a countdown instead of a count up, I would have put this one at the top, because of the strangled squeaking noises that I made while I was reading about it. Truly terrifying and possibly outright torture porn, Metallica is, in my own personal, humble opinion, the scariest stand in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Well, that concludes my list, everybody, though with all the honorable mentions, it seems far from conclusive. What do you guys think? Do you agree? What other stands do you think are scary, if any at all? I'd love to hear about and discuss things with you guys, so feel free to leave a comment down below or suggest some other top 10 lists. Thanks for sticking around, you guys. I hope to see you next time. Ciao!